welcome to our Hangout on Air. I'm Mary Beth at the Law of Attraction Club, on the web at theloaclub.com. On these Hangouts, we collaborate with our friends Tara. This Hangout is the summary of our theme for the week and continues with Q&A on our member conference call. We offer open calls about once a month, and you can get invites to those by going to our website and also getting our letting go process, our free letting go process, by going to the loaclub.com. So this morning or evening or noon, wherever you are, we welcome Robin and Tara. So over to you.
We welcome you here to our intersections this week, where we'll be exploring this question. If you're an always connected extension of all that is, and you are, how is it that you often forget that fundamental fact and carry on as if life is a struggle? This question, of course, gets us into the basics of who you are, what you're doing here, and what choices you have while you're here. Is it an important question? Well, maybe. Ultimately, of course, we're engaged with you in these discussions to help you get your thinking into alignment with what you want. So why don't we cut to the chase here and just talk about alignment? Well, alignment takes focus. And if you've wandered into some deep-seated habits of thinking that are misaligned with what you now want to create, it can take a lot of focus. And to maintain that focus through the early stages of conscious creation takes commitment. And that commitment comes more easily when you understand the facts of life. When you know who you are, you can confidently stay the course. When you know why you're here, you can more easily sit above the fray with a totally different perspective. We want you to get to the place of knowing all of that, truly knowing it, with a knowing that's ever present in your bones and ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. From our friends Abraham this week. The universe is abundant with everything that you want. It's not testing you. It's benevolently providing for you. But you are the orchestrator. You are the definer. And you do it through your joyous anticipation. If there is an emotion that you are wanting to foster that would serve you very, very well, it is positive expectation. It is excited anticipation. Some would suggest that you must give up on desire. We do not. Without desire, you literally would not exist. We say, get into that eager anticipation that Abraham is speaking about. It's the opposite of where's my stuff. It's the absence of doubt, and it comes from the confidence of knowing. We want you to know that you never miss the boat, that in every moment you can hit the life reset button and begin anew. And we want you to know that the journey towards alignment, maintaining that commitment and focus into enlightenment, is comprised of many of those resets. It's the daily reevaluation of where you are now and where you want to go now and what you want to be now and the exciting and delicious experiences that you now want to have. It's the rediscovery of what you've forgotten. Therefore, we make no apology for starting from the basics, because there are no mysteries you cannot fathom once you know the facts. So let's begin here once again with our question. If you're an always connected extension of all that is, and you are, how is it that you forget who you are? And if everybody is an always connected extension of all that is, how is it that this forgetfulness seems so universal? And what does it mean to be connected anyway? These are great questions that cut to the heart of everything, but they can only be answered if you step outside the normal boundaries of your thinking. It's not that the answers are complex. They're not. It's just that you can't answer them from a space-time perspective, and that's the challenge. Let's start with a simple answer, and we'll get to the more expansive answer as we proceed. By law of attraction, there's nothing you cannot be, do, or have, because everything you experience is a match to your vibrational set point. And the only thing that determines that set point is what you've chosen to believe and expect. So we say to this thinking consciousness that's you, all you have to do to change something about you and your worlds is to make a new choice about what to believe and get into alignment with that choice. How you do that, of course, we go on about at great length in this community, but it really is that divinely simple. Depending, of course, on the habits you've developed, it may not seem easy, but it is simple, and it can be easy. That also is up to you. So now let's expand on that a little. You'll note that we said change you and your worlds, plural. In terms of you being the decider about everything, is there any real difference between the things you experience physically, your body and the world around you, and the things you experience that are non-physical, or what you might call spiritual? Answer, no. Sure, there's no space and there's no time involved with non-physical things, but they are just different parts of your movie, your illusions. And if they're in your experience, you're creating them. Take us, for example. You're creating us in your experience, and we're as disembodied as it gets. As we said at the start, we're challenging you to step outside the bounds of normal thinking. Can you see that what you choose to believe becomes? And what's become already is what you've previously chosen to believe. Nothing more, nothing less. We know it's upside down from the way you usually think, but you don't learn or discover how everything is. From an array of options, you choose how it is. When you supposedly discover new things, all you are doing is filling in some of the detail about a world you've already decided upon. You are simply coloring in between the lines you've already drawn. Did you choose planet Earth? Well, in general terms, yes. But it's not like God gave you a catalogue and you sat down and made a selection. Let's look at a possible sequence of some of the gazillion choices you've made. Each choice defines a new set of boundaries for your experience. You chose a certain focused shape for your consciousness, a very big and fundamental choice. You chose what turned out to be a realm with time and space and gravity. You chose to emerge into it, be born perhaps, on what turned out, from later choices, to be a certain date and time and to certain parents. And by later choices again, you decided perhaps it was a round blue planet in the Milky Way galaxy, etc., etc., etc. Let's take a time out here. Many of you will be familiar with our about face process. We're going to take part of that process here right now and have you explore yourself in different versions created by different choices. Let's go visit some of those right now. They're on the trail that is your connection back to source, which is literally the only true, timeless, absolute fact of your existence. So, take a breath and relax. Now look straight ahead of you and see the piece of that virtual reality you're currently creating moment by moment. Now close your eyes so that you're no longer creating it in a visual version. That version ceases to exist. Now mentally do an about face and let yourself see and experience that connection back to source, back through that superconscious you, back through your higher self, back through the non-physical realms, back beyond any concept of time and space, back through us, right back to source. See it and experience it and feel it. Back down that connection are other aspects of you. We are another aspect of you. And branching out from those other aspects are the versions of you that made different choices. Let's just say hi to some of those right now. And let's just feel the essence of the gazillion different choices that you've made. And let's just see some of those different worlds you've created. Some are physical, and some have nothing that could be described as physical. Some have something like time, and some have nothing close to what you know of as time. All of them have different sets of boundaries. And as you experience that, just allow yourself to acknowledge that all of these are equally valid versions of you. Experience yourself along these infinite paths. And then allow yourself to come back down to this version and acknowledge to yourself how your now choices create your now world and all of the boundaries within it. Good. Let's think about an example of those boundaries. Let's say a friend texts you saying they're bringing somebody over for you to meet. What do you know about this stranger? You might say, nothing yet. But in fact, since it's another human, you already know a lot about what's possible, what's probable, and what's impossible. You already have these boundaries established by what you know, have chosen to believe about humans and about what your friend might do. What you show up when you meet them will be within those boundaries and will be a match to you at that point in time. Then you'll make some new belief choices about them and establish, probably, some narrower boundaries. Unless you think that the future is variable but the past is unchangeable, let's talk a little about your so-called past. We know you've been practicing that backstory of yours. You were born on that particular date in that particular city, and you went to this school, and you were good at this and bad at that. And so it goes on. It's a well-rehearsed mental process. And it's part of what lures you into thinking that because this or that happened yesterday or last year, you're now locked into this set of events or that inevitable outcome. Well, that story you've practiced is just part of the total story you're making up. None of it exists external to you. And so, when you really get down to it, you can choose and also choose a new past. Are you a night person or a morning person? The answer is yes and yes. Was President Kennedy's assassination an FBI plot or the work of a lone gunman? The answer is yes and yes. Is Earth being visited by extraterrestrials? The answer is yes and no. All answers are equally valid. And whichever particular answer you choose, your world will line up around that decision. You'll intersect with those who believe as you do, and you'll come across more and more evidence that supports your choice. That's called the law of attraction. Now, we're not suggesting you have to dream up a new past. We want you to get the concept here, because if you can, you'll begin to understand the true nature of time and see it for what it is. Simply an artifact in the story you're making up. And there are two big advantages to that. Firstly, it helps you to break free of seeing anything in your world as inevitable. And secondly, it gives you another technique for changing your life. You can think of a desire you have, and then you imagine a new version of the past that would most easily lead you to that place. Then you can practice that new version until it becomes a part of your new backstory. It can help. Give it a try. Play with it. Then we can discuss how it works for you. Good. So how is it that you forget who you are? You may have heard it explained as you agreed to forget as a condition of joining this game. It's a simple answer and it's sort of on the right track, but it's a one-dimensional answer to a multi-dimensional question. It implies that there's something external to you setting out the rules for this game. It also implies that changing those rules is perhaps not a choice you can make. These are not absolute truths. By what we've set out here, we're wanting you to see that what and where you are is simply an evolution of the choices you have made. There's nothing external to you making independent choices for you. You're the decider of it all. Well, how come everybody sees it the same? How is it that this forgetfulness seems so universal? And we say, which version of your worlds are you talking about? We promise you there's an equally valid version of the movie called Life on Earth where everybody knows about it and believes in the law of attraction. And there's an infinity of versions between and beyond and above and below this version you seem to be in and that one. So can you see you cannot examine the world and then use it to support your beliefs? It's your beliefs that create it. And those beliefs, as we say, come with their own life support system. Once made, you and your matching context will always be in alignment with those choices. So now let's get to what does it mean to be always connected? Firstly, recognize that in non-physical there can be no shapes and boundaries because there are no, those are physical dimensions. So when we talk, for example, about things like the conscious you, your subconscious, superconscious, or your higher self, or your tapestry of expectations, we use these labels for convenience. But it's worth always remembering in discussions like this, that even as in a spectrum of white light, there's no boundary between red and orange and yellow. So there are no discrete boxes here. And that connection and flow extends back to the source of everything, to all that is. When you get an idea, so to speak, from out of the blue, it comes from somewhere along that connection to source. It's not some sort of random firing of neurons in a physical brain. When an author writes a book and says the characters took over writing the story, or when a songwriter writes a new song and says it was just a matter of getting out of the way, they're talking about that connection. We're a part of the connection that's going on right now as we explore this subject with this one and with you. It's the old, what does a fish know about water question. You don't ever lose your connection. You're just so used to it, you just don't see it. That connection to source is the real you. We know that the physical world looks real, but it's just your context. It exactly matches you. That matching context is always going to be what seems to be the most real thing possible, until you make a significant new choice. When you do that, like waking up from a dream and inherently knowing that your awake world is more real than your dream world, your new world will now be that more real version of reality. So don't let so-called reality fool you. It is by making new choices that you step between versions of you. And when you do, that ever-present context changes to the new matching version. And you have a new stage on which to play out your experiences. It's all an inside job. What, therefore, can you control? From a person in the Abraham hot seat, I can control the wind. And the response, oh, you can control the weather. There are a lot of things you can't control with action, but there's nothing you cannot control from your vibrational standpoint of alignment. When you get into that place, you stop trying to control anything except your vibrational stance of alignment, because you understand that law of attraction takes care of everything. So anybody that's trying to control anything still hasn't gotten it. Control the only thing you need to control, and control the only thing that you can control, which is what vibration frequency you are achieving and practicing and maintaining and owning. And then watch what happens. You never miss the boat. In every moment, you can hit the life reset button and begin anew. And we want you to know that the journey towards alignment, maintaining that commitment and focus into enlightenment, is comprised of many of those resets. It's the daily reevaluation of where you are now and where you want to go now and what you want to be now, and the exciting and energizing experiences that you now want to have. It's the rediscovery of what you've forgotten. What does alignment feel like? As this one often says, you find yourself arriving at the bus stop just as the bus arrives. You find that new ideas flow to you. They seem to be coming from someone or something outside of you. They're new ideas in a sense, and yet there's a familiarity about them as if you'd known them all along. And of course you have. And it just feels right and worry-free to just run with those ideas. That's what alignment is. It's experiencing the intersection between you and the highest parts of you all the way back to source, and the best possible outcomes for everything you've always wanted. And here's the really delicious part. It leaves you in the eager state of, okay, woohoo, what's next? So in this version of you, if you seem to have forgotten who you are, we say that it's a personal choice you made at some point, and it's a choice you can unmake. Our intent here has been to get you out of the box a little. When you step out of the game and observe who you are always able to see, perhaps dimly at first, but then always with increasing speed and clarity, the infinite being that you are. And that's because your inherent nature is to dream new things into existence. We're just here to remind you. And who was it again that created us in your experience? We look forward to your questions.
This Hangout on Air was the summary of our theme for the week. We do 3 live calls a week with Q&A for our members on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. You can become a member by going to the loaclub.com/join. Our longer discussion with Q&A continues now on our member conference line.